Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab is thought to have used the online name Farouk 1986 in posts to an online Muslim community almost 5 years ago. He complained about feeling depressed and lonely, but so do millions of other teenagers. So how did this one end up a terror suspect? Randy Kay has been digging into that for us today. Randy, I know you've looked at a lot of these online postings. What have you learned?
Well, first of all, Campbell, it took us hours to get through all of these postings. We went through more than 300 of the postings online on a website called the Islamic Forum. The username for the poster, as Campbell just said, believed to be the would-be Christmas Day bomber, is Farouk 1986, which is a combination of his middle name and the year he was born. The key message in all of the postings is loneliness, desperation, and a struggle between following his Muslim faith and temptations of the outside secular world. In one of his first postings in February 2005, he writes, "I have no friends, not because I do not socialize, but because either people do not want to get too close to me as they go partying and stuff while I don't, or they are bad people who befriend me and influence me to do bad things. I have no one to speak to, no one to consult, no one to support me, and I feel depressed and lonely." Experts we spoke with who study this stuff say he was clearly looking for a sense of belonging. The poster, Farouk 1986, also writes about how loneliness gave way to sexual desire, which he struggled to control. He writes sometimes it leads to, quote, minor sinful activities like not lowering the gaze, which, of course, the Muslim religion requires.
So are we able to verify these? Do we know for sure that this guy actually wrote them?
It seems that he did, but not yet. Authorities have yet to verify that the suspect from this failed Christmas Day bombing posted these messages, but they match up with what we already know about his personal history. The poster talks about a desire to go to school at Stanford University or University of California, Berkeley. We know that Abdulmutallab ended up studying mechanical engineering at University College of London. The person writing also talks of attending an elite British boarding school in Togo, Africa. We know that the suspect in this case did exactly that. Some of the postings also refer to visits to Yemen, where he described the people as very friendly. The Yemen embassy in Washington confirms that Abdulmutallab had visited the country between August and December. So it does, Campbell, all seem to match up.
And just your take, Randy, having read through all this stuff, what stood out the most for you?
It's pretty creepy, actually, knowing right now, certainly, what he's accused of. But they don't sound like, in general, these postings really don't sound like they were written by someone with extremist views. Granted, these were posted almost 5 years ago, and a lot can change. But there is nothing here that suggests radicalization. They are the writings of someone depressed, or certainly who seems depressed, someone who has broken away from his family, including his father, who until recently was chairman of the First Bank of Nigeria. We know that Abdulmutallab, the suspect, grew up wealthy and is a Muslim Nigerian national. The writings also clearly come from someone desperate to get married and overcome those sexual desires, someone who was looking for pure Islam and true Muslims to surround himself with. Now, one posting in March 2005 hints at some stronger views, though, so take a look. He writes about former President George Bush. It reads, "I said to myself, why not forgive Bush for invading Muslim lands and killing my Muslim brothers and sisters, all the people who oppress the Muslims and all people who do me wrong, for surely Allah's torment is enough for them. If they don't repent sincerely, I don't need to add more torment on them." Speaking there about the Iraq War, of course. But that is really some of the strongest language, Campbell, that we've seen in any of this more than 300 postings that we've seen online.
Yeah, wow. Randy Kay for us tonight. A lot of stuff to go through. Randy, appreciate it. A question a lot of people asking, a very important question, is what to do with this terror suspect? How do we go about prosecuting him? On Larry King Live, former Homeland Security Chief Tom Ridge said he should be tried in civilian courts with full constitutional rights. Take a listen.
How do you adjudicate the individuals that we pick up from these places and make a determination as to whether or not they should be incarcerated for a long time, if not permanently? He's not a citizen of this country. He is a terrorist, and I don't think he deserves the full range of criminal protections of our criminal justice system as embodied in the Constitution of the United States.
So what, in fact, will happen to Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab? And joining me right now is Harvard Law professor Noah Feldman to walk us through this. Noah, good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
Do walk us through it. What is going to happen to them? How will he be brought to justice?
Campbell, they've already filed charges, or at least a criminal complaint, against the defendant, Umar Farouk Abdulmutallab, in Eastern District of Michigan Federal District Court. That means that criminal charges will almost certainly be brought against him in Michigan. The charges began with setting essentially setting a bomb on an airplane, which is a logical charge to begin with, that carries up to 20 years in prison. I would not be surprised to see further charges added to that, and then we'll probably proceed to a trial unless he decides to plead guilty.
And just to clarify, given all the many conversations we've had about military tribunals and special commissions, he will, during his trial, have the exact same rights as any U.S. citizen would, correct?
That's exactly right. If he's tried in federal district court, the fact that he's not a U.S. citizen is completely irrelevant to the question of his constitutional rights. He gets the lawyer of his choice. He gets to see the evidence against him. It can't be secret evidence, same as it would be for a U.S. citizen.
And Noah, you said he gets a lawyer of his choice. I mean, we do know he comes from this very wealthy family, so theoretically he could hire his own dream team if he wanted to, and this could become a prolonged legal circus, right?
That's certainly possible. It depends a little bit on whether his father, who tried to warn the United States apparently against what he was thinking about doing, decides to back him and to provide funds. The family could also, in principle, I suppose, cut him off, and then he'd be stuck with a federal public defender.
You have a plane full of people who witness this. So if you are a member of the defense team in this case, what on earth is your strategy?
It seems as though you can't make an argument that he didn't do what he was seen by so many people to have done. So then you have to argue various kinds of mitigation. I suppose they could conceivably argue that he was insane, although that doesn't seem like it would be an easy case to make given what we know so far, but perhaps they could make an argument like that. Or they could argue in some way that he had been coerced if they could show that some family member or other person outside the country had in some way been threatened, although even that wouldn't be a full defense to attempting to kill people. But pretty much those are your options. Yeah. You have to either argue that you were crazy or that you were forced in some way to act.
And Noah, there will likely, I guess, be a lot of sensitive security information presented in this trial. Is there any way, I mean, this is an issue we're grappling with in a number of these trials right now. Is there a way for the government to keep that secure and still use it against him?
The government will have to be extremely careful. In an ordinary federal trial, there can't be secret evidence. The jury, if there is one, or the court will have to see all the information pretty much that the public will see as well. And that means if indeed secret information is used to find out, for example, about the network in Yemen that may or may not have provided explosives to the defendant, then that information would have to be essentially presented fully to the jury if it were part of the trial. On the other hand, the government could work around that. They don't absolutely have to provide that evidence if they provide evidence that he committed the crimes with which he's charged. So the government might be able to work around it in some way. And
finally, Noah, if he's convicted, where does he end up?
He ends up in federal prison. No Guantanamo for him. And Richard Reed, the so-called shoe bomber, is right now in the Supermax facility in Colorado serving a life sentence. So that's the kind of place where it's entirely possible that he would end up.
Interesting stuff. Noah Feldman joining us tonight, Harvard Law professor. Thank you for your perspective. Appreciate it.
Thank you.